Okay, I think we should just probably give 1 more minute. I know we're 5 minutes, late, but we just give people 1 more minute so we can start at 5:35. But if you are joining us, welcome, welcome. We're very, very excited to see all the people that decided to join us this evening to discuss such an important topic. All right, welcome to this amazing session between the WPN and YIPA. My name is Ginika Egwuonwu, representing the WPN, and I will introduce myself as a businesswoman, the founder and managing director of a consulting company called Links and Bridges. I also like to call myself a catalyst and a person that makes things happen. Today, we are joined by the amazing Priscilla from YIPA, and I'll give her the opportunity to introduce herself. Who is my co-host, by the way? We have two hosts today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ginika. Good evening, everybody. My name is Priscilla Nthai, and I am the Vice Chairperson of YIPA. Professionally, I am a property valuer. I studied my properties degree at UCT, and I'm currently studying my master's in investment and finance at WITS. And as Ginika has already pointed out, I will be your co-host for this evening. Unmute yourself, Ginika.
Thank you. Thanks, Priscilla. So today we're going to introduce our guest speakers, and we're going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, starting with ZANDILE. If you could just take the opportunity to introduce yourself, and then we'll move on to Boipelo.
Sure. Thank you, ladies. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is ZANDILE MTHEMBU. Just a background about myself. I have 10 years experience in brand and business management in both the banking and property sector, where I've worked on various strategies across both industries. The 10 years are split between 2 years in banking and about 8 years in the property industry. And just to get into why I'm in the space that I'm in at the moment and how I got here, is basically that I started my career in marketing at a property company where my passion for property started. And it's just been growing ever since. And this is just basically speaks to the fact that property chose me. So I currently work for a company called Liberty 2 Degrees, which is a company I specifically sorted out to apply for because of the fact that they own iconic malls. And these iconic malls are a way for them to utilize and create experiential spaces that benefit generations to come. And in saying that, that kind of speaks to the futuristic approach that they have in the property industry, which is extremely important to me. Their values are also aligned with mine, and in the fact that they care about their communities in which they operate. And this is evident in a campaign that you might have all heard about, which is called Create Tomorrow. And I think I just align with this company purely because I'm a firm believer in giving back and just uplifting people. So that's the space that I found myself in.
Thanks, ZANDILE. Boipelo?
Sorry about that. Oh, well, ZANDILE, how am I going to follow up that beautiful introduction? But good evening, everyone. My name is Boipelo, and I am currently a student at UCT doing my master's, but also just a bit of background. I basically finished matric in 2009. I started there because that obviously led me into my studies in investing. And, you know, the honest truth that I even say in interviews was initially I got into this field because I wanted to make money. And I was like, how am I going to do that? And investment management seemed like a fitting course. So I went to do that at the University of Pretoria. And then I did my honors at UCT. Post that, I started working in the industry as an equity analyst for a Portuguese bank. And just recently, last year, I was working for Investec as an equity analyst. But I think in anyone's career, there comes a point where you have, to reassess your decision and where you want to take your career. And I think, that's what this year is for me to do by doing my master's full time. And also I have started a YouTube channel, which is something that I'm passionate about. And it's something that I started because I just wanted to just have a community where we can discuss and understand, investing as a whole, for youth, for everyone interested. And yeah, it's called Curious Investing with Pipilo. So I'm a host of that. So I guess I can say I'm a student and a YouTube channel host or something like that. Thank you.
I think we might have lost Ginika. Ginika, are you there? That's okay. I think we'll just start off with a short presentation from ZANDILE. She'll take about 10 minutes to do so. And then after that, we'll move on to our panel discussion questions. ZANDILE, you can take us away.
Oh, thanks, Priscilla. So firstly, I'd just like to thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this event that is so important for the cultivation of young professionals. It's imperative to have access to these kinds of spaces to understand the power of women and exactly what we're capable of doing. Working for women-led organization with real roles and responsibilities for females has taught me just how important these kind of spaces are. So I'm just going to get into it. So there's always been this negative stereotype around how women spend excessively on things like shoes and clothes and anything beauty related. Because I mean, really, what's better than the narrative that women would rather look the part than actually play the part? But according to an article published in the Forbes March 2020 edition, there's been a shift from this stereotype that shows women actually do research, and we are risk-averse and self-controlled when it comes to investing. This just completely debunks the stereotype that we have carried for generations, and that shows that women investors consistently outperform their male counterparts. So this isn't a conversation about male versus female, because we're not going to go down that lane, but rather a way to shed light on society at large and what it thinks about women. And it's up to us as women to actively change that. So in exploring this narrative, I'd like to share a story about myself. So one of my goals for a very long time on my vision board was to invest in my first property before the age of 30. I started viewing apartments as inspiration, as well as to remind myself of exactly what I was waking up for every single day, 9 to 5. And in 2019, I turned 29, completely disappointed that I hadn't reached my goal yet. I was still renting an apartment, and every time that rental amount came off as a debit order, it reminded me that I just wasn't quite where I wanted to be. And even though I felt this way, I continued to view apartments, and I would picture myself in them and would almost go into a character of a homeowner with every apartment I viewed. And if we fast forward to about January 2020, of course, still anxious, but extremely determined to get that picture of the apartment off my vision board, with less than 6 months to 30, 5 months and 3 days to be exact. And yes, I was counting. Feeling I had done enough research and had saved enough money for transfer costs and everything else that was involved, I took the leap to invest in an apartment I'd viewed 5 times. Yes, 5 times. I am pretty sure that the real estate agent at this point was completely over me, and she just didn't understand why I was doing so many viewings and not committing. But I just couldn't get it out of my mind. So I had to keep going back and making sure that I was sure about my decision. And I guess this plays into the fact that women are risk averse. I played the waiting game for about 2 years with all the legalities that had to take place. But on the 20th of March, 2020, exactly 3 months And 17 days until my 30th birthday, I got an email which confirmed the transfer of my property with the deeds office. I could barely contain the excitement of my goal coming to life, and that I had actually done it, and that I'd done it in the time that I'd set out for myself. I remember that day calling my mom with a little bit of a tear in my eye to tell her that it was final, and that I could finally move into my house. But of course, with my luck, and if you remember correctly, that was around the time where we were moving in to level 5 lockdown. This was a week before, which meant I had to move into my apartment as quickly as possible, and I couldn't even celebrate this milestone with those that are nearest and dearest to me. After all that waiting and all that dreaming, can you just imagine? But with all this madness, excitement, and feeling like I actually did this, I did. I remember the one thing about that time. My mom and I standing in an empty apartment, toasting to my achievement. And she turned to me with so much pride in her face and said to me, "Do you know that you're the first female child to ever buy your own house on your own?" I remember stopping for a second and almost being taken aback. And I was in a bit of disbelief, but she was right. I was the first in the family. And that moment made me realize a few things. One, it feels absolutely amazing to make your mother proud. Two, majority of Black females grow up without having a young female example of someone who invests in property outside of the confines of marriage. And three, females traditionally aren't conditioned to invest, which was evident in people questioning why, as a Black single young woman, I would even want to invest in a property of my own. So much so that some of the female family members didn't understand it and asked me why I wouldn't just wait for marriage. And my answer to why we should want to make these kinds of investment moves as women is to break cycles. Cycles of stereotypes that have been made about us, cycles that should stop so that we can create a domino effect for young females that are watching us, for them to look at us and know that it's possible to do the same and even more, because it's overdue for young females to take up spaces and financially emancipate themselves, so that they don't think that they have to get married or even have a man for these kind of things to become a reality, that they can do it themselves, that they can invest like a girl. And as Coco Chanel says, women who invest in themselves go further. And yes, I made reference to a quote about a famous designer, because we can look the part, but we can also play it. And in closing, in the words of Robert Kiyosaki, it's not how much money you make, but how much money you keep, how it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for. So if I can leave you with that, and just to plan with that in mind. Thank you.
Ginika?
Yes,
There we go.
thank you. I think we were collectively just stunned in silence, you know, / muted. ZANDILE, that was really powerful. And I know you just quoted Coco Chanel. I will lead into the next question, which you've kind of like touched a little bit on. And that is the fact that property investment is a long-term investment. And as you've mentioned, it is not traditional for young Black women or young women in general to purchase such an investment without first waiting for marriage. How would you say the role of women is changing in society, and how would you say that has affected your opinion about long-term investments made by women? So how would you say the changing role of women in society has affected your opinion about long-term investments? I know you just mentioned that, you know, we shouldn't wait till we get married to make such commitments to long-term investment. So how would you say, in your opinion, that has changed?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question, Ginika. So I think it's definitely changed because we come from a time where men were raised to be breadwinners, right? And that narrative has changed. Women are taking up spaces and seeking financial freedom, and we no longer need to be married to do these things. So we're doing things that are not necessarily traditionally or historically deemed our role in society. And as such, more of us are getting involved in long-term investments. So it's definitely changed that. And I see that with my friends and my peers, the conversations are different. We talk about investments more regularly. So definitely, I think that the shift that women have had in society has definitely influenced our decision-making.
Thank you. Priscilla?
Thank you for that answer. That was amazing. I'm busy trying to read the messages that are coming through the chat as well. People are loving the story, so thank you for sharing that with us.
It's a pleasure.
Sorry, we didn't mention this at the beginning. Ginika, you're supposed to introduce the competition that we have running. So if you could just do that before I move over to Boipelo and ask her her question.
Yes, that's definitely true. I was actually going to find a way, like a little intermission somewhere to slot it in and say, by the way, for those of you that have endured with us this far, we have an exciting giveaway. And that is, it's an opportunity that I'm hoping one of you would grab. So you get, 2 people will get 1 hour session with the CEO of Liberty 2 Degrees, which is where ZANDILE works. And that's a 1 hour session for 2 people. And you also get a wonderful camping chair. So I'm hoping that someone would grab a hold of these, some people would grab a hold of this amazing prize. And because you have engaged with us throughout the whole session, so make sure you keep sending your questions and you're very visible so you can get this amazing prize, this mentorship, the opportunity to learn from a great mind. And yes, so that's the giveaway, a mentorship with the CEO of Liberty 2 Degrees.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Boipelo, I'm going to ask you your first question. So I know there are a lot of stereotypes out there when it comes to men and women. And, you know, it's believed that men usually are more confident than women, sometimes even more confident, overconfident to an extent when it comes to investment decisions. So I just want to know from your perspective, what do you think confidence, or what role does confidence have when it comes to investment decisions? And maybe what could women do differently that would give them a level up in the industry?
Yeah, I think, you know, in finance, behavioral finance, we study how investment managers, you know, make decisions. And, you know, overconfidence is obviously described as, you know, somebody who would oversell and underdeliver, or somebody who makes their skill more than what it is, you know. And what we've noticed is that, you know, only 2%, you know, of women are solely fund managers in the US, meaning 98% of funds are actually managed by men. And if you see how active funds have performed in general, they generally underperform the index, you know. So that goes a long way to speaking to how overconfidence, specifically in for males, you know, has served them. So I think, you know, ZANDILE having spoken about this, women are much more risk averse, and we think about issues throughout. It helps not to oversell and underdeliver. But also just going back to the 2%, you know, I feel like, you know, in decision-making roles that, and you know, like for example, on the JSE, you know, I can count the amount of women that are in that. That is to say the 2% sample, and, you know, the women that are making decisions, it's too small of a sample also, you know, to kind of just throw a definite blanket at how everything works, like sort of how decisions are made. But so we need a bigger sample. We need more women in those spaces. But I leave it at the on average, active funds underperform, and 98% of that are managed by men. So yeah, that goes to say a lot.
That is very, very true. You know, it is, these statistics are quite sad. And I think that given that we're in the 21st century, 2021, we should be having higher statistics, higher women doing better things out there, not only in the investment industry, but as well as the finance and the property industry as well. So yeah, it's staggering, but I'm hoping that we can just make our way up there. You're on mute, Ginika. You're still on mute, Ginika.
The most famous word.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I can't unmute. For some reason, I can't unmute myself. I have to wait for the lovely operator to allow me to unmute myself. So my question for Boipelo with regards to overconfidence, and I know that this is just dabbling a little bit on, you know, around the idea of diversity, right, with regards to fund managers. What would you say women should start doing to just, you know, almost have the same level of confidence that men tend to have, so that we can really also just drive this you know, with our confidence, just drive a lot of drive a lot of diversity, and also in terms of just making investments and taking risks. How would you advise a young lady to improve her confidence, but without being overconfident? That's just my follow-up question.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. But I think it's just to go back to my answer in saying that overconfidence is not necessarily, it's not great that somebody sells their skills and their ability, and then you give them money to manage, and then, you know, they just return little or below what you could have done had you just put it away in an index, you know. So I think it's good to be confident, but according to really how you can deliver. So it's been disappointing that on average fund managers have, like I said, underperformed. But just to go back to women, I think ZANDILE touched on this. On average, women funds or women investments, if you look at Monthly Food, which is an investment company, say that women overperform. So if you compare men and women overperform first, and also they make less losses. So it feels like women are doing the right thing. In fact, it feels like males, on the other hand, can learn from what women are doing in terms of not overselling their skill, but actually, you know what, bringing up returns.
That's a great question. Great answer. So I'm going to now take it back to ZANDILE, and going back to her initial experience as a first-time homeowner. You said something that was quite interesting along the lines of having a vision board. I would like you to just give us a little more detail on that, you know, speaking from your experience of purchasing a home, and just tell us more about how you got access to credit. I know the vision was there, which is amazing. You viewed the property like 5 times to just really convince yourself and cement the idea. But the practicalities of it now, how were you able to get access to credit? Your confidence, and speak to your confidence in your knowledge. I mean, it took you 5 times to make that decision. So can you just walk us through that process, that practical process?
Sure. I think first and foremost, I am very blessed in that I have a mother who has pretty much trained me since I was in high school. She was very adamant on making sure that we had a good track record in terms of finances. She was very adamant in being an active role of kind of coaching us, I think from a very young age. So I didn't struggle with that. I've been blessed enough to have access to a female that can guide me in that way. So in terms of access to credit, I think I'd created a track record for myself over the last, I guess, 8-9 years that I had been working. So access to credit wasn't hard for me because I went into it knowing what I wanted at the end, you know. And I think, yeah, I think that's about it. I think experientially, I think what I did experience though, which I found a bit said, and I touched on it earlier on when I spoke, is that the barriers that I had in my situation were around men in my family and kind of around me have always been encouraged to move out of home. You know, you always hear that thing around men need to go leave the house and start their own house, their own household, their own lives, while you as a female kind of sit back and you wait, I guess. And it created a barrier for me because people didn't understand what I was doing, didn't understand why I was doing it. Luckily, the people that were close to me, like my mother, my sister, are forward thinking. But in terms of the broader family, people didn't understand it. They didn't have confidence in what I was talking about. So you almost look a little bit crazy when you're talking about these things as a 26, 27-year-old, saying that you want to get your own property. And yeah, I think there's a lot of unlearning that needs to be done as a society in order for and men to be encouraged, you know, to be encouraged in the same way. So yeah, I think that's my experience. Does that answer you?
It does. It does. I love that point of unlearning. Priscilla, do you have something to add as well?
Yes, I do. Just a housekeeping rule. So if you have any questions, please rather put them in the chat. I see some people have raised their hands, so rather just type it out and then we'll get to them at the end of the session. Thanks, guys. So just to add on to what ZANDILE was referring to there, I think other ways that people could consider maybe getting a head start would not necessarily just, you know, look at themselves. They must look at the people around them, because you might be surrounded by like-minded people. I say this because I'm also part of a crowdfunding company, and we basically put money together every single month and we actually buy property. So you don't always have to look into yourself or into the knowledge that you have, but it's mostly also just looking at like your peers, maybe people that you've met along the way, people that you network with. I'm a huge advocate for people who network. So you should do that for yourself. So yeah, there are different ways in which you could get started in the property industry, but definitely ZANDILE, your story is amazing, and I'm sure it is so inspiring to so many people who are watching right now. So I'm just going to move on.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on to Boipelo. So one of the major, you know, issues when it comes to young people who are trying to invest, you know, we don't necessarily have the information or necessarily have the tools or even basically know what to do when you start investing. So what kind of or making the right decisions when you're trying to invest as well. So what kind of tools or investment options would you actually give as advice to any young person out there who's trying to start investing, whether it's on property, whether it's actually going on the stock exchange, anything like that? Doesn't necessarily have to be property.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not property, because I was gonna refer it to ZANDILE to answer that question. But I think, you know what, which is, you know, one of the best advice that I ever received is and I'm gonna sound cliche, research. And you know, ZANDILE's story touched about it, go into a property 5 times. I think it's the same with making an investment in shares, you know, investing in a private equity or an alternative investment. You just have to do research, understand exactly what you're putting your money into. And when you invest, ultimately you expect growth, right? So if you're telling me that I'm putting money away and I'm saving it for 5 years, the first question I'm asking you is, oh, if you expect it to grow, what exactly is going to grow it? And that means you have to do research to understand, how does it get from 1 to 5 or from 1 to 10? And I think, so read. These days, you know, there's blogs, there is YouTubers who have, you know, started YouTubes and give tips on investing. It wasn't like the old days ago, you know, where you didn't have a cell phone to Google things quickly. So I would say, again, to say research, know what exactly you're investing in, also understand obviously your goals and all these things to see what fits you. But that also goes into, sorry to repeat the word, research. But my YouTube channel is called Curious Investing with Boipelo, and the curious part is what makes you confident in making a decision. It's because you have been curious about what you're putting money in, and you understand exactly how the growth is going to come. So just a lot of reading, and you don't have, like I say, you don't have to go far these days. Information is at our fingertips with the internet. So start there, start small. Read books if you have to on how to start. But yeah, like I say, just read.
Okay.
You heard it for yourself, ladies. Research, research, research.
I like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that she said learning research on how to take your money from 1 to 5, right? So that's the whole idea, investing so you can grow your money. And now taking it back to ZANDILE, I'd like ZANDILE to just tell us what recommendations would you make for women in South Africa with regards to liquidity and investing? So knowing that a portion of your salary goes towards your mortgage, right, in terms of your property, or that you're contributing, you're making this significant contribution towards your investment, what would you recommend, or what would you say about having money on hand and versus having a portion of your salary going towards your mortgage? What would you recommend the average South African woman to think about or to choose, if I can put it that way? I don't know if my question is clear.
I think I understand the question. So I think my answer is probably going to prove the fact that we are risk averse as women, but but I think it's been as simple as running a monthly budget, and I think as women, liquidity is very important, and knowing that there's a sum of your money that's been taken or being put into a mortgage, whatever is left needs to go as far as it can, right? So you need to look at exactly what you're spending your money on, and is that beneficial for you? So it's literally being as strict as having a budget that will line item exactly what you're spending your money on, just so that you can reassess whether you're doing the best that you can with the money that you have. And it will teach you to kind of change your, I guess, spending pattern or your spending behavior. And sometimes we don't, and funny that you touched on it, because I was reading an article earlier on that I wanted to bring up in this conversation. And I think sometimes, I mean, you do have situations, it's ideal that, of course, you check your budget and you know what's going on, but there are situations where you find yourself quite stretched, and you find yourself in a situation where you might have had a student loan, you might have had something that you had before that you're paying off, right? But I think there's an article that came out today that talks about the stokvel funding, and FNB actually released an article today talking about the scheme that they now provide to their clients, which allows 12 people to pay towards a property. So I think we need to look at those kind of things, and I'm going to use the same word that we've been using the whole night, but it's around research as well. And knowing that these things are out there, and you just need to do the research to be able to know what's out there if you're not as liquid as you would like to be.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you, ZANDILE. You spoke about budgeting. I wanted to find out when you actually started budgeting, because as young people, you only really start when you start having your vision board. Other people start when they're 18. So I just wanted to find out, when did you start budgeting? Other people on the panel, let's inspire the young ones out there.
Okay, I'm going to give an honest answer to this one. I've been given this speech so many times by my mother around budgeting, and I just didn't listen. Hey, I wish I did. I really wish I did. I wish I'd started earlier. But I think in me working towards getting a house and then getting it, it became more important for me to budget. So then I became stricter in when that happened. But before, no. Before, life was, I can pay for whatever, I can pay for whatever, because I didn't, I didn't have the expenses that I have now.
And everybody else, Boipelo, Ginika?
Sorry, I just, can I say something?
Sure, please step in.
Yeah, thank you. So I was just, I'm going through the chat, and I just wonder if, because like just somebody just asked a follow-up question from my research answer, and I was wondering if, before I answer another question, I could refer to just clarify something on what on the question I saw in the chat, if that's okay, just to clarify on a specific question.
No, that's okay.
Oh, okay, no, and it has to do with, thank you so much, Priscilla and Ginika. It has to do with the research, because a participant said this, you're saying research, but there's so much out there. How do we validify that, what we are reading and taking in is good advice? One of the things that I would advise within the research that you're doing is to go to the big guys that are already doing it. For example, if you're going to look at investing in shares, you look at the big guys that are investing in shares, and you look at companies like Allen Gray, Coronation, Old Mutual. Those people give out letters and news every single month on what they're investing in and why they're investing in those things. So I would say, start there, read those kind of letters and see what kind of thinking those people that are doing it at a professional level have to say. And then that should guide you a little bit to filter out, the Twitter noise and the other YouTubers and the other research on the internet. Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify that part only.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Ginika, when did you start budgeting?
So I will say that I'm also a little bit like ZANDILE, where everyone knows, budget. But it only really started sinking in probably a few years ago, when I left, being formally employed by an employer and decided to go off on my own, go into the wind, start my own business, become a business owner, bring my visions to life. That's when I realized the importance of budgeting. So I would say probably like, from 2019, when I started taking on a lot more responsibility than I had previously had, that's when I really started getting into budgeting and looking for other types of investments, more volatile investments, if I can call them that, but just diversifying my own personal investment portfolios, looking for things that would truly just help my budget go an extra mile. So not too long ago. What about yourself, Priscilla?
Well, I started budgeting, I think, early in my university years, because I had to section out the pocket money that I would get, dependent on what I wanted to do for fun. So that's when it started. And since then, I've just literally every single month, I relook at my budget. I may think I even obsess over my budget a little bit, but it's definitely a good skill to start while you're very young. Also, maybe when you even start your first job or so, just have a handle on where all your money is going. Because if you don't have a handle on that, then how do you know how much money you actually have to invest? And it will also just give you an idea of like the lifestyle that you're living and whether it will take you to the vision that you want to have, i.e. the vision board that you would have created earlier in your years. So yeah, that's when I started budgeting. I think unless there are any other comments, I'm going to move over to my next question for Boipelo.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say that also audit your financials, your bank statements. When you go through each line item to see, you will see how much you overspend on other things that you shouldn't be. So that is, for me, that is also a wake-up check for budgeting, that, okay, maybe I plan to spend this on entertainment, but I was spending a bit more here. So just audit your bank statements.
That is a fantastic.
Absolutely.
I guess my next question is also aligned to budgeting. So it's also kind of a stereotype in South Africa specifically that, you know, women are more likely to save their money more they are to invest it or to maybe take more risk. So what would your advice be, to allow women to basically move their savings to investing, and how can they basically do that? You know, because they always say that you must save. I can't remember what the exact number is. So 5% of your salary must go to your savings. But then the counter quote is, you know, if you're going to save all your money, then you're not necessarily going to grow your wealth, essentially. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for that question, Priscilla. I think, you know, when I think about investing versus saving, I think investing long-term, saving short-term, right? But the truth is, in budgeting, and you know, when you budget, you keep putting money away for emergency services, right? You pay all your debts, you pay everything, then you save money for emergency services, and you can't say that's an investment, you know, because at anything, if an emergency were to happen, you'd access that money. So above and beyond that saving, I think that's when, you know, we all need to start saying, oh, okay, I have, you know, 2,000 rands or 5,000 rands for emergencies. Above and beyond, if I can have a little bit more money left, then I'm going to start putting it away and, you know, having vision for it to grow, again, I say in the long term. So I would say, you know, let's just like, if we can just remove our minds from saving for emergencies, or I'm putting away money for the short term, and think about generational wealth. You know, how do you get money to compound 700%? It won't happen in like 3 years. You need to allow it time. So if you're going to put money away, you need to realize that you can't touch it. Even when your mom needs, you know, it for something, it's just money that you don't have access to, because it's meant to grow. So I think we must just think about timelines and really envision what, you know, the kind of growth we want. And if it's generational, then, you know, like I say, we have to just move away from the short-term kind of saving.
No, I completely agree. There's so many comments and questions coming in through the chat. So I just want to keep reminding everybody that we should stay as active as possible, because our prizes are very, 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 very delectable rather. So in case you missed it, we do have a bag for a giveaway, as well as a mentorship time with the CEO of Liberty 2 Degrees, Amelia Beatty. And that would literally probably also propel you into understanding property and understanding investment as well. So I just wanted to keep adding that for those who may have joined us a little bit later. So keep getting more active and putting up more and more questions in the chat. We will get to them sooner or later.
So thank you, Priscilla. I've got a question for ZANDILE, and I'm also going to, it's a double barrel question, but I'm going to loop in Boipelo into this. And I will kind of like split the question, or want them to answer from two different perspectives. And this next question is, what defines a successful investment? And I would love you ladies to talk about what defines a successful investment from the perspective of a beginner. So, you know, imagine I am last final year of university, or I just started working. From the perspective of property, I'd love ZANDILE to talk about what defines a successful investment, and kind of like also give like a hint of how to start that. And I would also love Boipelo to talk about other types of successful investments and how to kind of start, you know, what to look at or how to start it.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Ginika. So I think specifically to property, right? And I'll take it residential in terms of what I looked at and my journey into getting the place that I got. I think it's very important to understand the times that we're living in. It's important to understand what return on that investment looks like in this specific time. So for me, I looked at the location of the property as well as its surroundings, looking at things like, is the area developed? Would I be able to make profit should I decide to sell? Is it in a place that's going to grow capital value over time? As well as if I decide to keep this property and get another one or move to another place, would I be able to rent it out and make money from it? And when I say rent it out, I'm talking about either in the traditional sense that we've been doing for years, or even looking at things like an Airbnb. So what I did was I looked at Airbnb in the area and looked at kind of the going rates for the rental, and would that still, I guess, apply if in 2-3 years or 5 years or whatever happens, would that be beneficial to me? So those are the kind of things that made me decide whether this is a successful investment.
And how would you tell a person to, a person kind of like fresh out of school or still in school to start? Like, how would you advise them to start? Like, you've done all the thinking, which is amazing, you shared your thinking and thought patterns. How would you advise them to start with regards to residential property investment?
I think it's very important to speak to people that are in that space, either people that sell property or people that work in the space, just to understand what it means, right? As well as doing, and I think we're going to use this word quite a few times, doing your research. So before you even decide on what kind of residential property you want or where you want it to be, I think it boils down to research and speaking to the right people and people that are going to be honest with you about the process. And yeah.
And the costs to prepare for, because a lot of people might not be aware of what kind of costs and what is required from them. YIPA, what about you? What would you say with regards to this question?
Guys, oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry, because I just had to shut the noise from my roommate. But I wanted to say that, at the bare minimum, your investment needs to beat inflation, because if you have 100 rands today and inflation is growing at around 4%, if your money grows to 102 rands and inflation is now, like 2 rand more than that, what you used to buy with 100 rands will buy less, so at the bare minimum, anything you invest in needs to beat inflation. But above that, I feel like everybody invests with an expected return in mind. And if your investment can beat that expected return, I mean, that's a very successful, investment. Let's say, you decide, okay, I'm putting my money into ShopRite, or I put my money into a company called, I don't know, Easy Equities, Purple Group, for example, the company that is used for investing. You say the share price is around 140 cents now, and you're like, I believe the stock will grow from 140 to 5 rands. That's an expected return, and if it grows and it goes to 10 rands per share, that's like more than double. So obviously, that's a successful return. But that's also to say there's other kinds of investments, like investing yourself through education, investing with the time you spend with your family and friends. For me, I found that those kind of investment, aside from the monetary ones where you have to beat inflation and you have those kind of monetary expected returns, those kind of investment at the end of a lifetime, when I think about it, I mean, I'm too young for this, but I would have been happy with the kind of returns I would have gotten from those type of investments. And obviously education for me, I'm doing my master's now, but even my honors got me into really great doors. So for me, that was a beautiful return. That was a successful investment, I would say. So yeah, let's just not keep it to just monetary. So there's other kind of successful investments you can make in your life that are actually very meaningful.
Last question for you, YIPA. You touched a little bit on it,
Yeah.
But where would you advise a person to, just going back to monetary investment, where would you advise a person to start? Like, where do they find stocks to buy? Where do they find stocks, even like buy shares from? You might have people that are not aware of the different platforms out there. So where would you say they should start?
So I've done an episode on this, where to start, on my YouTube channel. But, and I talked through a platform that I use. Initially, I started with my bank. So I bank with FNB, and FNB offered a place to buy shares. But what I found buying shares and selling shares on FNB is that it was limiting and it was quite expensive. And I was obviously introduced to Easy Equities, which is an app that is they just want to democratize investing, make it easy and accessible to everybody. So all you do is go to your app store, or to, I don't know what Android people use, but go to your app store, or to your Play Store, get the Easy Equities app, download it onto your phone, register like you're setting up a bank account, where you will need your proof of address and those other things. And then,
it's also an app store.
Sorry. And then after that, go through the actual app, and you will see it won't be easy at first if it's your first time doing it, and you'll probably feel a bit overwhelmed. But as I said, I gave an example with doing the research. Go check what other investment managers are doing and what kind of stocks they're investing in. If you go to their fact sheet, you'll see there the kind of stocks they have, and some of them, are invested in MTN. And once you start to understand why they're putting their money into MTN, that will also guide you sort of to see, okay, maybe I can put my money into MTN, but you would have the knowledge of why you're putting your money in there. So yeah, from my advice, I would say use the Easy Equities app. I've found it the easiest to use, and I don't want to market it. I just haven't, I've been so happy with it after moving from my bank. I probably should do a little more, research, and find, a good competition to Easy Equities. Maybe there's better out there, I could be told.
If I could just add on there, there's also Easy Properties, which allows people to invest in property as well. I know this may be a little bit of a difficult question, but maybe you can use your experience on what you have done. So it's basically a follow-up on Ginika's question. So in terms of your portfolio that you put together, did you maybe start off with like different percentages of the types of stocks that you're investing in? So did you say like 5% property, 3% equity, et cetera, just to give our audience some kind of understanding of where to start? Because I think that's the hardest part for young people. They actually just don't know where to start. You may say research, you may say look at fact sheets, but half the time we don't really, or they don't necessarily understand what all those different things mean. And for you to bring up Easy Equities, the whole concept behind that was to make it easier for people to invest and to understand all the terminology. So they have a great platform. Again, I'm not advertising them, but what they have done has actually helped a whole lot of young people to invest in different stocks and different instruments that they would have not had access to or even knowledge of. So yeah, maybe just give us a breakdown of your, just an overview of the portfolio that you currently have, started with, anything like that.
Okay, so you're gonna hate my question because, I obviously worked in the investment industry. So when I was at Investec, I was in a team. I looked specifically at the food producer stocks. So your Tiger Brands, your Oceana, your AVIs. And for me, I started because I had the know-how, right? And that's not helpful to somebody who does not have the know-how. But I think this is why I started my channel, because I was like, oh my word, if I was not in the investment industry and I wanted to get into investing, I would have zero clue on where to start. But what I always say, which is a good investment advice that I have gotten from Peter Lynch, a successful investor in the USA. He says, start with companies that you know, the companies that you use every single day. So look at your bank, look at your network operator, look at where you buy food. These are companies that you're familiar with and you know what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve. I think that is a very good way to start, because then you can tell me a story about ShopRite. You understand what they're doing. They sell food for low prices. They're going to grow their stores across Africa or whatever. So that's a nice way to start. And then I feel like once you continue to get a feel of it, then you can make bolder decisions with other stocks. But start with what you know. That's what I would say.
That is fantastic advice. Any other comments from the panel on that? No? It's okay. It's okay. I think I'm also going to throw another spanner at the works. And I just wanted to get maybe even everybody else on the panel can give their input on this. But, you know, cryptocurrency has been growing immensely over the last few years, growing a lot of popularity as well. People, I'm also going to put you on the spot again, and I'm going to ask you just just to give us your perspective, your view. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Should young people get into it? You know, there's a lot of conspiracies out there. There's a lot of they're going to eat your money or you're never going to get your money back. Yeah, I just want to see what maybe understand what your stance is on that.
Oh, this question is a tough one. I think, you know, I dabbled in crypto in 2017, and that was at the height before it tanked horribly for like 3 years before it came back again up last year. And what I learned from my experience is that, you know, and I think this is why a lot of fund managers have not necessarily, you know, incorporated crypto in their funds, is that, you know, it's so volatile. It just moves up and down quickly. You could lose your money, like 50% of your money tomorrow when you wake up. And, you know, something like that is obviously you have to have liver and take in so much risk. So it's a very risky, you know, type of asset class. I don't even know if it can be, you know, considered an asset class at the moment because it's online digital currency. But it goes back to my answer about, you know, understanding what you're investing in. The truth is I know it's a digital currency. I know it's going to be used. I know what blockchain is about, you know, but I don't fully understand it. And, you know, I can't put my life savings into something that I'm not sure about. So, you know, I'll leave it there. You know, it's just one of those where we all waiting to see. You know, I wish I left my money in there. It would have grown. And, you know, for those that put 1,000 rands and whatever, and it has grown, good for you. But, you know, that's not to say tomorrow you don't wake up and it's down like 100% and the world is up in arms again. It's because we just really haven't fully understood it and how it's going to change our lives. But yeah, it's an interesting time. But I don't want to say much on this one because it's a tricky subject.
Can I jump in there? So this is the advantage of being a layman, right? So she's speaking from the knowledge of, you know, someone who has the investment background and all of that, and me being straight, you know, from construction industry, QS, first degree, honors, masters, and all of that. I don't have this knowledge. However, the funny thing is, beginning of this year, I also kind of heard about cryptocurrency in 2017. I tried to get on the platform. It took too long for them to like register my details, so I abandoned it. I kind of regretted that. But this year, my parents were actually the ones that started telling me about crypto, which I was shocked about, by the way. So my mom was like, she called me and she's like, you know, she starts talking about crypto, and she says you should invest in Ethereum, not Bitcoin, right? Because Ethereum, she took a little bit of her savings. So the thing with crypto, someone also advised me, it's very volatile, like you said. So you should take like spare money. You don't take your life savings and put it in there. So she told me, you know, Ethereum had gained 5x in the space of a year. So if you had put like 1,000 rands, you would have gotten 5,000 rands out, right? So I was quite shocked about the fact that, first of all, my parents were the ones that were kind of like advising me on crypto. Number two, I decided to try a little bit as well. I took a tiny little bit of money the first time, put it in there. And as you said, it just literally, it does this. Like, you know, over a space of a month, you could have, it could go up by 17% over the space of, or more, 29% over the space of 6 months, could go like this, but it's very unpredictable. So from my personal experience, I don't think you should put your life savings in there, definitely not. But you can, if you have spare money and you are courageous and you're risk averse and you want to see your money, like, you know, multiply in a very short time, and you've got the guts and liver, try it. And the platform I use is, I also don't want to start advertising, but the one that's also democratized access to crypto is Luno, right? These guys should pay us. All these platforms we've mentioned, we should go get royalties or something from them. So that's my experience.
Fantastic. Do you have anything else to add there, ZANDILE? On your side, maybe your experience, your friends' experiences?
No, I'm glad that we spoke about cryptocurrency, because I wanted to ask about that, because there's quite a craze around that. So I'm glad to have gotten that feedback.
Perfect. You can go ahead with your next question, Ginika.
Okay, so this is for ZANDILE. And the question is, what would you say is the most important tip that you have acquired with your experience? What, like, if you were to give a person one tip or the most important tip from your experience in investing in property, what would you say that tip is?
I'm going to use our word.
Advice.
I'm going to use our word again, but it's definitely research on the hidden costs that are involved in owning a property. For some reason, we think that it's only going to be the bond costs, but it's not. There's a transfer costs. There's looking at into the interest rates and kind of playing the banks against each other to get the best interest rate that you can get. There's the COJ costs. There's levies. There's water and electricity, and there's also and a very important one for me is life insurance, and treating your property like it's a living thing. And I think that's very important. And those are not things that you're told beforehand.
Interesting. I think we can also pose that question to Priscilla. What would you say is the one tip, the most important tip? Since as you're also the guru, you know, in investing with your channel, what's the one tip you can give our audience in terms of investing, apart from research?
Yes, sorry. I was going to say that it's going to sound a bit repetitive. I won't say research, but but I will say, I think I mentioned it, you know, just know the story. Just know and understand how you're moving from what you have now, what you're buying now, to how it's going to grow. And you know, I did an episode where I talked about my mom's fit cook business, and basically explaining how it can come to be listed, and you know why, the reasons I would probably want to put my money in my mom's fit cook business. I mean, if your neighbor came to you and said, I'm starting a business, please can you invest in it? You're gonna have questions like, oh, how are you gonna make money? You know, who are you gonna be your customers? Are they gonna be once off, or are they gonna be recurring? You know, how long will it take for me to get them? All those questions that you have, you really need to have them with any investment that you make. So it's so nice when somebody asks you, what have you invested in and how do you expect it to grow? And you can, you know, plainly, like in layman's terms, tell them, oh yeah, no, 100%. I invested in Purple Group. It owns Easy Equities. Easy Equities only has, you know, 2 million subscribers right now, but there's 60 million people in South Africa. So, you know, as it grows and more people use it, I expect it to also grow the share price. That's a story. You know what you're investing in, you know. And I mentioned before, you know, Vodacom, Capitec, ShopRite, all these companies that, you know, Woolworths, you know, oh my word, as more people, you know, get more money, they all want to shop at Woolies, because it's you know, it's an aspirational type of brand. So I think it'll do well. Oh no, check out 360. You know, now they're doing, you know, delivery online, and you know, they're taking everybody's market share. I think that is going to do well. Know your story and understand the growth drivers of what you're investing in. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Priscilla, I think you can ask the next question, the last one, to both of them.
Yeah. I'm going to jig it up a little bit, but you know, we're still in the thick of the pandemic, right? And COVID-19, it rocked us. ZANDILE mentioned it already towards the beginning of our webinar. So I just wanted to understand from both of your perspectives, maybe obviously how it has affected, so ZANDILE from your side, the property market, and then Boipelo obviously from the investment perspective, how COVID has affected that. And then maybe your understanding of how you see it moving forward, the markets moving forward, and how that would basically inform the investment decisions that people should make. I know it's kind of like a golden question, but yeah, we'll start with you, Zandile.
I think just plain and simple. COVID, people don't have the liquidity that they used to have. They don't have the access to the money that they had before. So I think it's created a situation where there's a lot of vacant rentals. So for example, if you invested in a property and wanted to put it on Airbnb and make money off that, there's so many dips, there's highs and lows throughout COVID where we're changing levels of lockdown. So sometimes you can travel, sometimes you can't travel. And just generally, I think there's just an up and down thing that's happening because of COVID in terms of investing in properties at the moment.
And on your side, Boipelo?
Yeah, I think, when COVID hit, the economy came to a standstill. That was obviously negative for a lot of companies, and that meant a lot of shares tanked, as we saw, with Sasol and the oil price. All planes came to a standstill. A lot of demand went down, so the oil price tanked, and companies like Sasol, and you also get malls like ZANDILE has spoken, where people were not going to malls anymore. And then what happened was that obviously government and the reserve banks around the world stimulated the economy by reducing interest rates, so that people can, borrow more money and be able to spend. And in the US particularly, you saw stimulus checks. People were actually receiving checks in the mail. And what that has done is, sort of stimulated growth again. And now you're starting, the conversation has shifted, and it's just now on inflation, right? What I'm saying is that from COVID hitting to now, we've seen strong recoveries in a lot of these investment products. The JSE, for example, is up over what it was pre-COVID, even the S&P 500. So we've seen a strong recovery based on the stimulus that the government has been providing. In terms of now, what happens for the future, I think, COVID, like a lot of black swan events, left investment managers thinking, how is my portfolio structured? And is it structured, to survive COVID, an event like COVID? And, there were stocks that even when everything else was going down, they were going up, like Zoom, Microsoft, tech stocks, but property stocks, not on the other hand. So I think it's left people reevaluating how the world is going to look, 5 years post-COVID. Will we be still working from home? Because that'll obviously affect investment in properties. Or will we be a tech nation where we have meetings online and people just don't even have business trips? So I think that's the kind of thinking portfolio managers are left having to consider in terms of where to place money and where the most growth is going to come from. I'll leave it there.
Fantastic. You can take over.
Yeah, so I think we can probably just now go into the question and the chat section, because I can see people are like, sending questions. Priscilla, I'd actually like you to maybe just go through it and let's open the floor up to answering these questions on the chat. And yeah.
So some of the questions we have kind of touched on, and I'm just going to allow the team to just continue to send me questions. Just give me 2 seconds. This is a nice one. Question goes to ZANDILE, and it is, what is your advice on finding mentorship? Because, we always have to uplift the ones that come after us.
So I think mentorship is a very personal thing. And I think mentorship, you have to relate to the person that you kind of choose as your mentor, if that makes sense. I don't think that a lot of people just think that you can batch someone to someone and they become your mentor. And I don't think that works. I think there needs to be someone that you can relate to, somebody that you kind of see you see yourself in that person, if that makes sense. So I would say do a lot of research around mentorship and the person that you want to be your mentor, and then take it from there.
Okay. Any other comments from you?
So I also wanted to add, you know, that sometimes mentorship does not have to be somebody you can physically see. You know, you can have mentors and watch from far. Like, you know, you can, like, I mean, I'm sure we all do this, but I follow Oprah quite a bit. And, you know, I don't have a relationship with her, but I listen to her podcast, I read her books, I read her blogs, and I feel like that is also mentorship on the deal. I know. I think ZANDILE was answering a good one in terms of just an actual person you want to go for, but I just want to also raise that another thing, it doesn't have to be a physical person you can meet with on a regular basis. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Agree. Yeah. I actually had someone who said you can be mentored by books, channels. In fact, one of the mantras I tell myself when I wake up in the morning, as I do like my morning reflections, is I tell myself, I try to imagine myself face to face with this person. So I say, who of my mentors am I going to listen to this morning? And I try to like put myself in that mindset of imagining them like in front of me and speaking to me and saying the things they're saying. I kind of saw a question in the beginning, right from the start of the chat, where the person was asking, and this is, I think it was Emmanuel, Cornelius, asked Emmanuel Cornelius, asking, how do we get young girls excited about investment and property markets? How do we get them excited? So I'm assuming this will probably apply to like someone in university. And before you answer, can I just throw in a very interesting story that I have? So I have a 9-year-old niece who, I've got a few nieces, but this particular one was like, you know, she wants to buy a big house at the age of 18. So I told her, well, if you want to buy a big house at the age of 18, you need to start saving. You need to start making money now. So initially she's like, okay, she's going to sell lemonades. And I said, that's not enough money. Like you're 9 years from now, it's not going to get you the mansion you want. You need to start thinking big. For her, she, you know, I gave her the advice of buying stocks, try to explain what it was, but she got very excited that she can actually buy a mansion at the age of 18. So how do we inspire more of that type of, you know, getting them excited about thinking of investments and how to grow your money or grow your wealth and things like that? I'd like to hear from ZANDILE and Boyfellow, and also you, Priscilla, as well.
I think Ginika, just to go back to what I was talking about earlier, in terms of the importance of females to have an example to look up to, right? And I don't think there's any better kind of encouragement or inspiration for somebody to invest in themselves as well as stocks, as well as property than that. I think there's a very big need for women to be able to see us or for us to see other people that creates an inspirational thing. And I think that's very important.
Boyfellow?
Sorry, I thought that was actually perfectly, you know, understanding. I think, you know, it's we give good examples by doing ourselves and being, right? And so yeah, I actually don't have much to add to that. Love that answer, yeah.
I think I have a comment rather to add to that. And I think in becoming a good example for young people, we don't always have to look at adults who are much older than us. I'm going to use my words wisely here. It could even just be us, for example. We could be inspiration. We can be a mentor to anybody else out there. So just because you're at this part in your journey and in life and your goals and your vision, doesn't mean that nobody else or somebody else younger than you is aspiring to where you want to be. So I think we should also be opening ourselves up to having conversations with younger people and getting them on the ball, getting them to understand so they can speak to this level, talk about stocks, talk about property, you know, like a second nature, you know. So it's not necessarily that you have to look at the older people who are in their 50s or, you know, huge CEOs. It literally could be your next door neighbor, the girl next door. So that's just the comment that I wanted to add there. Unless you have anything else, Ginika?
Priscilla, also just to add to that, it's also leadership, using the word leadership loosely. Leadership doesn't have to be older than you, right? So the same way that we in this platform, and we could be learning from younger people on this call. So I don't think it's age appropriate. I think it's just having an example, however old that example is.
No,
yeah, and I think it's just nice to celebrate how far we as Black people have come with financing and investing. I mean, I don't think when our parents were growing up, there was even conversation about investing and shares and those things. And now it's becoming a thing, you know, around brides, where we talk about, oh, which stock, or, you know, oh, which property, or which, you know, I think that is something to celebrate. And that is definitely something beautiful for the young generation coming, that around dinner tables, we will talk about, you know, how politics affect a stock, and it will be so cool and exciting. And yeah, I think it's a beautiful time to be alive.
Fantastic. Ginika, anything to add?
No, nothing to add. I think I've said it all. I did see, I don't know, Priscilla, if you want to, you know, just being mindful of time. We have like 10 minutes to go. I know announcing the winner should not take too much time. It should probably take like 2 minutes, drum roll and all of that.
Yeah.
Do you think we can take more questions? What do you think?
Yes, it is. So there was another question that came in. I'm not going to read it verbatim, apologies. It's kind of hard to kind of scroll up. But as being a woman, the other part that we have to deal with is being Black as well, and dealing with Black tax. You know, it's something that is a term that has been with us for generations. So I think the question was along the lines of how do we find that balance, you know, of being able to uplift your family and those around you, but at the same time also wanting to see your longer term goals, your investments growing over the years. Maybe let's start with you, ZANDILE, then we'll go to Boipelo if you have any comments to add.
Sure. So Priscilla, I have to be honest with you and own my privilege in this conversation. I don't have that kind of Black tax where my mom doesn't expect me to send her money. My mom doesn't expect me to pay for something. So I feel like if I had to answer that question, I wouldn't be doing it justice, because I don't have that kind of situation in my current situation. But I do see, I do see what impact it has on other people. Because, for example, I think I touched on it earlier on around, before we even go to Black tax, there's things like student loans that you need to pay off before you can even think of investing. And then once that's covered, now there's this whole thing of the fact that your family has put you through school, so you need to come back and give back to the family. But yeah.
No, very valid points there. People on your side, do you have anything to add, comments?
Yeah, I think, you know, this is a bit of a toughie, because, you know, on the one hand, you want to use money to put it all away, to, you know, invest and grow it and build generational wealth. And on the other hand, when you go home, you see cousins, you see your sister needs a lot of things, and that those are now current expenses. And you have to juggle those two, you know, things. And, you know, like, what do you do? But I actually, I forgot actually what the question was, but I will say this, that when it comes to Black tax, I have approached it from this point of, if I am able to help out at home, I see it as a beautiful privilege. And I think there's a generation that has to sacrifice, similar to how, you know, with us in apartheid, Black people, our parents had to sacrifice and for us to be in schools, I might have to sacrifice just a little bit more just so that, second generation goes to varsity as well. And I think that's how we build, a successful nation from that point on. So I see it as a privilege that I'm able to help at home. Sorry, I could be not answering the question, but that's how I approach Black techs.
No worries with that. I think I'm just going to go on to one of the last few questions that we have. We are telling up, I want to say our votes in terms of who has won the gift. But we spoke about a few comments or quotes that you guys mentioned regarding books and authors that you've read. So maybe we'll go ZANDILE, Boipelo, Ginika, and then myself, a book that has inspired you, has changed the way you think, that has just gotten you to the place that you are today. It could even just be an author, a series of those books that have done that for you. Sorry.
Sure. Thanks, Priscilla. So I think there's quite a few books that have done that for me, but one that would stand out specifically is probably Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes, which speaks to the power of embracing who you are and having the courage to set aside what you're not. And I think that's very important because we can know who we are, but we also need to know what we're not. And it's important to never forget who you are, no matter where you go. And also be able to say yes, even if there's fear, right? Because nothing amazing comes from comfortable spaces. And I think that's what that book taught me.
I would say the most recent one that I've read that I loved is Grit by Angela Duckworth. It's essentially about, passion and long-term and perseverance for your long-term goals. You could even describe it as just not giving up. And I think, she talks about it in terms of building it for kids at a young age, because we never taught that, we never taught the how to build a muscle of never giving up. And that, goes to building character and goes, will obviously go to how you invest and look at money. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful book that I've enjoyed recently.
And just to add to that, I know she has a TED Talk. I wasn't even aware that she wrote a book. Angela Duckworth, I think that's her name, has a TED Talk on grit. So I would say my book that I read, I'm going to say two things. So the book I read is the 5 that I kind of drew inspiration from is The 5 a.m. Club by Rob Sharma. And I love that book. Just talks about, the importance of just putting in the work, but it's written so beautifully. It doesn't seem like a motivational book, so it's quite amazing. And then the second thing is I listened to a mentor, spiritual mentor that has a very good balance, and it's important to me as a person who is spiritual. So a person that balances my spiritual life with what I should be doing every day. And that's someone called Joshua Selman. So that's I listened to all his teachings and his books and all of that. And that has truly fundamentally shifted my perspective and my self of wholeness and understanding. So that's it from my side. And sorry, Priscilla, also, after you answer, I think I would just like the ladies just ask one last question, if you don't mind. No, you can tell us about your book too. You don't
I thought you were going to ask first. Apologies, there's so much going on. I'm multitasking here. Women's superpower, yes. But my 2 books are also by Rob Sharma. He's just amazing. So the first one is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. That is just a book on someone who is super, super rich and basically changed their life. And try to change the way that they live their life. The second one that I'm currently reading is The Leader with No Title. And that is also amazing. That basically speaks to how, again, you don't have to be the CEO to be a leader. Leadership skills and leadership roles can be shown through different formats and different ways. So those are the 2 books that have stood out for me this year. But another podcast, sorry, because I saw that you mentioned a podcast there, Ginika. I can't remember the lady's name, and I'm not sure if I can say it, so I'm going to bleep it. But it's actually called unbleep your mind on, you can fill in the bleep parts.
I love that
I think I know
podcast,
it.
Priscilla.
Right,
I know
she's amazing.
Yeah, she has Anna, I think, but she's brilliant.
So her story is
Yeah.
she was a lawyer, Harvard graduate, and she basically changed her life and became a life coach. And she's so supportive about women's rights and just letting women and young women just understand where they are in their lives and how they can propel themselves. So yeah, those are my my favorite books and podcasts. You can go ahead and ask your question, Ginika.
Thank you. Just to round up, someone did ask this in the comment section, and I'd like it to be like a passing word. So let's say I'm in university and I get pocket money of like, I don't know how much people get as pocket money today, but let's assume like 500 or 1,000 rands a month, and you would like to feel like you are an investor, or you would like to start building an investment portfolio. Where would you ask them to start? Like step 1, download, or step 2, go to your app, your banking, YIPA. Maybe you can take this, because property needs a little more than 1,000 rand.
I feel like you were answering it a little bit. But I think, maybe start by defining your goals. If you're gonna want this money in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, or you actually don't mind it being locked away for 10 years, because that will make you change your attitude to what you think about the money. You won't check it every single day, and like if it goes down and be like, oh, I want to sell, and you won't panic, you won't be driven by emotions, because it's gone for 10 years. That's my first. Adjust your goals and your thinking and be sure what you want to do with it. And then I would say, because like I said, an app like Easy Equities has gone to democratizing. If you have 100 rands, you can buy, for example, a share like Nespa's, around 3,000 per share or something around there. You don't have to have the full 3,000 to buy one share. That 100 rands can buy a fraction of a share. So that's to say that if you have 50 rands, if you have 100 rands, you can actually start. So yes, I would say get the Easy Equities app, get a feel for it, play around with it. And like I said, start with companies that you use every single day, and just put away that money. I think, beyond it going up or down, it's just to get started. As cliche as it sounds, starting is it's something that will get you into a different mindset, and just get you more interested in doing it.
You can also start with your bank as well, just like you did. Some banks these days give you that opportunity. So maybe if you don't want to start with Easy Equities, you can play around there and get yourself feeling like an investor. Maybe when you've collected enough money, then you can start thinking of property, the next step, and all the amazing advice ZANDILE has given you. Start speaking to agents, start seeing yourself as a property owner, do it a few times and build that mindset. That's it from me. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Priscilla, you should also announce the winner, right? You're announcing the winner.
I know. It's a bit nerve-wracking because the chat has been so interactive, and thank you all for your comments. Again, and also all the people who's been sharing all the information has been so helpful. For everyone else who's also on the chat, also network with the people that you talk to on the chat, ask them for their emails, and maybe you guys can start your own network amongst each other. So as we mentioned, we do have 2 prizes to give away. So the one is the mentorship with the CEO of Liberty 2 Degrees, Media Beauty. I saw she was on earlier. I'm not sure if she still is.
She was. She just jumped off now.
Okay. And the second one is a wonderful bag. So thank you again for all your interaction. So the first prize in terms of the mentorship goes to Londiwe Ratebe. Well done. So we have your details already from your registration. So you'll hear from us regarding how all of that will work. Hopefully, I really do hope that you have a really great conversation, 1 hour conversation with Amelia, and come ready, guns blazing. This woman is amazing, and yeah, well done. And I hope it's a fantastic a fantastic win for you. And the bag, we are going to give it to, apologies if I don't pronounce this correctly. W so long. I hope I got that correct. Thank you again for your interaction. I kept seeing your messages pop up, so well done on that one. Again, we do have your details, so we will get in contact with you regarding how you will be able to get your prize. Thank you so much, everybody. If there's any more other comments, I will actually close the webinar. Anything from your side? Maybe closing comments, let's rather do that. From our speakers, we'll start with you, Zandi, and then move to Boipelo. And as for you,
sure. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to everyone that's been a part of this. And secondly, I think I'll leave you guys with, I'd basically just say, do everything without fear, right? And as much as we are risk averse, fear kind of stops us, right, from reaching the goals that we need to get to. So do it with the fear. And yeah.
Fantastic. And from you side, Boipelo?
I feel like Zandile always says like all the best things. And then I'm left with like, what should I follow up that with? Like say. I'd also just like to say thank you so much for everybody who attended. I never even imagined I'd be, speaking at a conference like this. So I appreciate the host and everybody who planned this for asking me, and I appreciate everybody who stayed and listened. Yeah, thanks.
Any parting words from your side, Ginika?
Yes. So I'd like to just encourage the audience to say that, whenever you're faced with a challenge is an opportunity to grow. So don't run away from a challenge. Just like if a seed planted in the soil were to speak, at that point where the shell is cracking due to the pressure and due to the change, it will probably, feel like the world is ending, but it's actually bringing forth new life. So whenever you're faced with a challenge is just a hidden opportunity for growth. So don't be scared of a challenge. That's it for myself.
Perfect. One last request, apologies. It's just for our speakers to maybe share their social media handles if you are willing to do so. I'm not sure about that. I know, Boipelo, you've been talking about your YouTube channel, so maybe just reiterate that for the audience, because I saw a question on that come up as well.
Oh, sorry,
okay.
I'm typing it in.
Thank you. Yes, I see you putting it on the chat. I'm like, okay, cool. So it's on the chat for anybody else who wants to. And Zandile has put up her LinkedIn name. My LinkedIn is also my name and my surname. You should be able to find me. And Ginika, on your side?
Same as well. My name and my surname as well. You should be able to find me.
Perfect. Again, this webinar has been recorded, so for anything that you have missed, you can just go onto any of our social media platforms, rather. That's the YIPA social media platforms, and you'll be able to get the recording. In closing, I would like to thank my wonderful speakers. I had so much fun tonight. We should do this again on another Women's Month, on another Women's Day. So thank you to WPN for partnering with us and doing this event as a joint partnership. And again, thank you to our sponsors, which is Liberty 2 Degrees. They have actually propelled YIPA to be what it is today, and to be able to bring these platforms to you as the audience. And thank you to the audience for being so interactive. I know we run over time. There was so much to talk about, but hopefully we'll meet again, and have a great evening, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.